Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce our ALP speaker for this afternoon, Dustin Burrows. Dustin is a Lubbock native who began and continues to practice at McCleskey, Harriger, Brazill, and Graf firm here in town. He focuses his practice primarily on commercial litigation and personal injury litigation. He's a Texas Tech Law School alum. We're very proud of that. He's licensed to practice in Texas and in New Mexico. He earned his BA at Rhodes before getting both an MBA and a JD with us. He has many honors and awards to his name, including being named as one of Lubbock's 20 under 40. He's been named as a super lawyer. He's AV rated by Martindale-Hubbell, which is a very big thing, especially someone who's been in practice about the time that you have. That's an incredible achievement at this point in your career. He's very involved in the Lubbock community and a lot of civic organizations, and some of you have probably seen his various signs around indicating that he is running for the open congressional seat. I give you Dustin Burrows.
Thank you, Dean. It's an honor and pleasure to be back. I gave a very similar presentation last year and thoroughly enjoyed it, and thank the law school for having me back again to make another presentation. The title of my topic is Law Firm Economics. What I did to get ready for this debate, or this presentation, sorry, I was talking to Professor Lowy, my former debate partner. This presentation is, I talked to a bunch of other attorneys that I'm friends with, people that I consider very successful in the practice of law that have different experiences than I have had, and people that I think that maybe some of y'all would eventually go work for and you would consider successful as well. I spoke to a partner in the oil and gas section at Haynes & Boone out of Dallas, a Med-Mal partner, what's left of Med-Mal partners at Thompson Co., a bankruptcy partner at Jackson Walker, a plaintiff's partner at Provost Humphrey, and then some local attorneys around town. Also, I looked at what the State Bar was commenting on for law clerks and associates these days, and there was 2 articles I printed off that I submit to you for your review that I think are very good and complementary to this presentation. The questions that I asked my colleagues was, what are the most common misconceptions that law clerks and associates have? And then what are the characteristics of a law clerk that you would likely hire, or an associate that once you have them that you think will actually make partner? And this is what I found. Most common thing that I got back when talking about associates is, I've noticed this, the people I talk to have noticed this, is you get these wonderful accolades and these wonderful honors in law school. You were on law review, or you were on board of barristers. You were top 10 in your class. Well, that's a real testament to your work ethic, and it certainly gets your foot in the door. It is certainly something that I would look at in considering whether or not to hire somebody is, well, this person is willing to dedicate their time, they're smart, they're likely to succeed in the practice of law, so they get a job. But let me tell you, once you start as an associate, none of that matters. It really doesn't. It's kind of a question, you know, as myself as a partner looking at an associate is, what have you done for me lately? The other big thing that I've noticed is people start off as an associate and they think, okay, I went to law school because I saw somebody in my hometown, they were a lawyer, they were rich. I'm going to be a lawyer, so I'm going to be rich. I show up at the office, that's all it takes. I'm a lawyer, here I am. This is what it is. Well, let me tell you, that's not the case. If you become a lawyer just to be rich, that's not likely to happen for most of y'all. If you actually like what you do, you'll be good at it. If you're good at what you do, the money will follow. The other common misconception that I continue to find is associates want to pigeonhole themselves. Law students want to pigeonhole themselves as coming out. I've been in many interviews where a third-year law student has made up their mind. I'm going to be an oil and gas litigator, period, the end. I'm going to be a medical transactional lawyer, period, the end. As an associate, I see a lot of young associates try to do the exact same thing. Well, let me tell you, that's not always a good thing, and it's not well advised. As a young lawyer, I'd submit to you, you ought to try to do a little bit of everything. And I'll give you a good example. In 2003, the state of Texas went through tort reform, passed a constitutional amendment that barred and put caps on the amount of damages that you could receive if you sue someone under medical malpractice. Well, that dried up both the plaintiffs and the defense side of that work. There just wasn't a whole lot of it. So there was an associate with my firm who had done a little bit of work in, it was some sort of health care, looking through the compliance work. Well, as soon as MedMal dried up in 2005, because she had had some other experiences, she was able to ride the storm. She was able to go back to that fallback position, those other experiences she had, and she made it through the next couple of years as she transitioned her practice through that MedMal decline. Not everybody was able to do that. So I suggest to you, you don't have to make up your mind exactly what narrow niche you want to get into. You have some time, but work on a lot of things. There's a lot of crossover appeal. You can learn a little bit over here, learn a little bit over there, and eventually you'll become a better, more well-rounded attorney. The other thing I see, and this is predominant in some of the big firms, is, well, my family can take a back seat. And what I mean by that is you're willing to put the long hours in. I applaud you. You know, you get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, you're at the office by 6, and you stay to 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. You drive home. You basically never see your family. You do the same thing on the weekends. You know, it might make you real popular with some of your partners at first. But I'll tell you what, when people start having those family crises because they're not at home, when they start getting the divorces, when their home life is not happy, I promise you, your work life will suffer as well. So you may get some short-term gains from that, but in the long run, the lawyers I've seen who've done that, they have wrecked their home life, and eventually it has wrecked their career. And this is my personal pet peeve of law clerks and associates. Oftentimes, I look to law clerks and associates to tell me what the law is. It's a constant. So I'll submit a question. Will you please go tell me what the law is on this certain area? And maybe that law clerk or associate wasn't able to find something and doesn't want to come back to me and tell me, hey, I couldn't figure it out. Or maybe they didn't think that the assignment I gave them was as important as what some of the other partners gave them, so they put it on the back burner. So I go find them, go ask them, hey, did you do this? Did you research this for me? And I get an answer. And I can tell when I get the answer that they really haven't done anything, but they're still willing to tell me this is what the law is. Well, I'll give you a suggestion. Don't BS a BSer. I mean, you can see through that real quickly. If you haven't done the work and you haven't figured it out, just admit to it. It may not be a comfortable conversation, but I promise you, it's a whole lot better than trying to tell a lawyer that you're working for what the law is and they know you're wrong. So, these are the successful traits that I have seen and the gentlemen and ladies that I talk to have seen of successful law clerks and associates. Enthusiasm, number one, above all else. You know, is this person enthusiastic about what they're doing? I mean, are they really invested in the cases they work on? Do they think it's really cool, this lawsuit, and how big it is, and how important it is, and how it affects the client? That enthusiasm is infectious. And when I see a young lawyer who is enthusiastic about one of my cases, I want to work with them on that case over and over again. I want to work on them with other cases, and they do such a good job. That, to me, is the most important trait and quality that I see, is just that straight enthusiasm. And that kind of dovetails in that next part of it, wanting to be part of the team. You know, there's a young man in this audience who we made an offer to and is going to be an associate with us starting in the fall. And a lot of the reason he got the offer, and he may not even know this. Mike, where are you? Okay. He might not even know this, but the reason we were so excited about Mike is I was getting ready for a trial about a year ago. And it was a big trial. We got it last minute. We had about a month to go before getting ready for it. And I think we had 15,000 pages of documents. We were going to try it in the middle of Odessa. And Mike, thought it was pretty cool what we were doing. I mean, we'd give him a couple assignments, he'd do it, and then he'd just kind of hang around and want to know more about it. And we were getting ready on the weekends, and Mike would say, hey, I'd like to come up on the weekends and work. And we don't require our law clerks to work on the weekends, but he wanted that experience. I mean, he thought that this fight we were having was really interesting. He was engaged in it. He wanted to get involved in it. And let me tell you, that made a real impression on myself and the other partner that was helping me try the case. So that enthusiasm, that wanting to be part of the team, that wanting to come up on Saturdays, not because you have to, but because you think, hey, this is a cool trial. I want to be a litigator, so I just want to be around trial lawyers getting ready to see the preparation process. I want to go down to Middle and Odessa and watch you guys try the case, even if I can't get paid for it, and you should get paid for it, but even if you didn't, that you just want to go watch opening statements, and you want to watch a good voir dire, and you want to go see closing arguments because you can want to see how this job will be if you actually had it. Those type of things, those attributes, those characteristics, that's what I'm looking for, and I believe most law firms are looking for when they make an offer to a law clerk to become an associate, or they see associates they want to become partners. Goes in with putting in the hours. What was explained to me when I started off as an associate is you should be there every morning to make coffee for the partners. It doesn't matter what time you come in, but if you're the person who actually makes the coffee, the partners will notice and they'll be grateful and they'll say, hey, he's an early bird, he got here, he made the coffee. And then they said, well, what time should I go home? Well, make sure all the partners have left and then you can go home. So just that perception of being there at the office, wanting to work, was such an important thing, and it was relayed to me that this was the important thing about how you're perceived as an associate. Another successful trait is a rapport with the clients, with the judges. If we're getting ready for a trial, or we have clients in for depositions and an associate or a law clerk is sitting in and trying to get some of the experience, watching some of the things we do, just the idea of being able to talk to the client about the weather or having something or finding something in common with them. I mean, at the end of the day, what we're doing in the private practice is a service, and there's a likability element. You can be the smartest person in the entire world, but if you can't relate to the client who's paying your bills, they aren't going to come back. So just that casual ease of being able to make conversation is so invaluable and so important for law clerks and associates to have. My managing partner pointed this one, number 5, to me. I said, okay, so what is it that you look for? What tells you that this particular associate is going to be somebody you want to have as a partner and is going to exceed and succeed in the practice of law? And he said, I look at how they treat their secretary. I watch them. I mean, when nobody's looking, are they nice to their secretary? Do they treat him or her well? I mean, do they treat them with respect and kindness? And, even when all the pressure's on, how do they deal with that person that is working for them? And I thought that was really interesting, and certainly I think that the point he made is very valid. And this is my personal favorite. I talked to a plaintiff's personal injury lawyer who's probably made more money than any of the people that I visited with about this. Very successful, type of guy who just made a lot of money off insurance and suing people, but very successful. And I said, so what is it about an associate that is important to you, that tells you whether or not you want them to become a partner? He goes, well, I look at all of my associates as little pigs. I said, oh, okay. Well, I mean, what do you mean by that? He said, pigs, personal income generators. That's what they are to me. And I thought that was very true, and of course, this is a guy that, I mean, it's all about the money for him, but, if you get into that type of field, just remember that. I mean, for a lot of these people, they're looking at you not for anything other than, are you going to be able to make me money or not? Are you going to be able to be a personal income generator for me as a partner? So these are the bad traits. The things that I look at that associates that have worked for me and in other firms have done that I think, these are really bad traits. And I would caution any of y'all to watch out for these and take a look at them. First one, talks too much with opposing counsel about positions. I see this all the time. I do litigation, so I relate everything back to litigation. I mean, in litigation, people have not been able to work out their differences, so we have sued or been sued, and we're going to go let 12 random people decide this case for us. It is a high-stakes game of poker with other people's money. That's all it is. And the only difference is you can improve your hand with hard work and preparation. But I see far too often associates and even partners that they want to go talk about their case with the other side. They want to talk about the positions. Well, in poker, you don't want to give it all away. Don't give that information out. I don't care how brilliant your position is. Hold it back and surprise them. Keep that ace up your sleeve. And I see this mistake made all of the time. Another one is just gossiping with colleagues. This is a trait that a lawyer, he's been practicing for 40 years, brought up to me. He said, I was at the airport, and I saw two young lawyers, getting on a plane at Southwest. By the way, Southwest, if you live in a place like Lubbock, that little 8:30 flight to Dallas is, you'll see a lot of people and a lot of people will be listening to you. It's just a real common flight. And this older attorney says, I saw these two young, trial lawyers, these litigators. They're probably 3- or 4-year lawyers. And they worked at two of the bigger firms here in town. And they were sitting over there, and they were talking about their clients, and they were talking about the cases, and they had no idea who I was, but I know who they were. I knew who their clients were, and I can promise you if their clients had any idea that they were talking this way about them, they'd be fired on the spot. And I see this very often, is we have this collegiality, and we want to brag about our cases and brag about what we've done and how smart we are, and maybe the client is not, and we get around other lawyers about our age, and we can relate to them, especially in this public environment, or maybe over a couple of beers or lunch or at the airport. And I'm telling you, it is a mistake to do that because you never know who's listening in. If you take away anything from today, this is the one I put in here for this presentation that I would really, really hope I can make an impression here today on this. Showing off. It drives me absolutely crazy. I watch lawyers all the time, and this is true from a first-year lawyer all the way to a 40-year lawyer. They want to sound so brilliant, and they want to be demeaning to the other side. They want to tell them how smart they are, how much they did in this case. And it's just this bragging or demeaning in writing these strongly worded letters about, I am so smart, you are so dumb, let me tell you why. Those letters absolutely have the opposite effect on me. People who are truly powerful and masters of their craft don't need to write those letters. I know who they are. The best lawyers I've ever seen that can try a case, who have the biggest reputations, they don't need to do that. They don't need to tell me how smart they are, how many big cases they've had, how dumb they think I am. I can figure that out for myself. So when I get these types of letters and I get these emails that are curt and just demeaning and things like that, I sit there and I think, well, why does he have to try to prove something to me? Is there some insecurity there? That's my reaction to it. But I see this over and over and over again. I'll give you an example about that. I am running for the House of Representatives, and I had the opportunity 2 weeks ago to sit down with arguably the most powerful man in the entire state of Texas, Speaker of the House. And he wants me to do something that he knows that I'm not necessarily for. Speaker of the House did not have to tell me how powerful he was. He did not have to threaten me. He did not have to intimidate me. He did not have to make any promises to me. He didn't have to show off. He didn't have to tell me anything in the world. I knew, just by being in his presence, that this is a person who's in a very powerful position. Same day, I get a letter from a lawyer out of Amarillo that does all of the things I just described. And I sat there and I thought, this is so funny. The people who really have that powerful position, who've made something and have done something, they don't have to brag about it. They don't have to show off. But those who haven't, they feel like they do. So keep that in mind. Maybe that doesn't make as much sense to you today, but I promise you, as you start getting into the practice of law and you start getting these letters and you're getting these emails and they're curt and derogatory and things like that, just remember the effect that it has, at least on a lawyer like me. Procrastination. probably the biggest pet peeve most lawyers have, especially in litigation. We have deadlines that are set by the court. It doesn't mean that you need to start 6 hours ahead of time so you can have this stroke of brilliance and feel like you really got to work hard on it. Deadlines are not basically, let's count back 12 hours and start a project. There is no reason in the world in litigation when we have to deal with courts and their scheduling orders that you can't get a project started earlier and maybe even file something 3 or 4 days before a deadline. There's so many crises in the practice of law. One of my former partners told me that basically the practice of law is nothing more than triage. You're trying to find the most wounded patient on the field first and treat to them. So if you're already in this crisis management all of the time, that everything is an emergency, why go ahead and procrastinate and create more emergencies that you have to deal with? Something will not work out at the last minute sometime. Motions are not masterpieces. For the most part, motion practice is a utilitarian function. We are trying to tell the court, move them to do something. Here are the basic facts. Here is the basic law. Judge, please do this for me. Most judges out here in some of the bigger cities have an active trial docket. They are not going to read a 20, 25-page motion over something easy and perfunctory. There is no reason to make every motion you write a masterpiece. And I see this over and over again from law clerks and associates that, okay, I'm going to put every single word, every single bit of law that I can possibly find in this motion. That way it just happens to be in here because maybe the first 3 or 4 pages didn't do it. So I submit to you, if you can do something in 3 or 4 pages in your motion practice, in your briefing, that has more persuasiveness and more an effect and a better chance the judge is actually going to read it than a 25-page motion. Finally, on bad traits, getting to know too easily. A lot of first and second year lawyers that I see, we talk about a case. I do some plaintiffs' work on the commercial and even the personal injury side, and we get a set of facts that we believe to be the case with the outset. And maybe the facts aren't ideal. I promise you, God never gave you the perfect case. There's always facts that you don't want to have to contend with. But I see younger lawyers that they see these 1 or 2 bad facts, or they don't think that these facts are good, and it's almost like you just want to give up. Here's the law. The law is this constant thing. But just because some of the facts that you know today at the outset of a case, you still have an opportunity through discovery, through expert witnesses, through good deposition, to take the core facts and develop new information and new facts to fit the law that you need. So there needs to be some creativity in the practice of law. Just because you might not like something at the outset or there's a bad fact in there, don't just say, oh, well, that's not a good case. Sorry about that. Or on the other side, say, well, they don't have a good case because of this. A really good, truly brilliant plaintiff's lawyer can get around most facts, not every one of them, if they know what the obstacles are in the law. So the practice of law, it is a business and a profession. It's a balance between the two. The business side is you've got to make money. The professional side is you've got to take care of your clients. It is not all a profession, because if you don't take care of the business side, you'll go broke doing it. And it's not all a business side, because if all you focus on is how much money can I make day in and day out, you will not have any professional relationships to continue on with. So you've got to find the balance between the two. The reason I was first asked to come here is, I believe, a lot has to do with the fact that I've overseen my firm's finances for 4 or 5 years now. And that's my opportunity to maybe give you a little peek around the curtain at how a law firm actually functions on the economics, so you can see how a law clerk and an associate plug in to the economics of a law firm. I look at daily reports, obviously daily. I see what every attorney has collected that day. I see what the entire income is. And the reason we do that is just to make sure that, okay, are we getting enough money in the door to cover our overhead? Are we getting enough money in the door so that we actually get paid at the end of the month. Once you become a partner, it's either Christmas or Halloween. I mean, if there's money in at the end of the month, it's Christmas. If there's not, it's Halloween, if you know what I'm saying. Partners get paid last. So we track the money daily to see, are we going to meet our projections? Are things going well? Is there a client that's getting very far behind in paying us so that we need to do something because we can't afford to work for free? So you monitor these things day after day after day, and eventually they get translated into an end-of-the-month report. So this is the end-of-the-month report. What we take a look at is, these are the fees that we collect for an entire month. These are the expenses that we actually incurred. You know, expenses are going to be just your things with each case, your copies, your faxes, your expert expenses. You have your rent that's a constant, the salaries that you're paying your attorneys, equipment, marketing efforts. And the goal is hopefully you have more money, your net, more money at the end, so that you have something to divide up with the people who actually own the firm. And you track it compared to the year before and see, is there a positive increasing trend? Yeah, we've collected more fees from the year before, the same month, and expenses held neutral. So, yeah, we're actually doing something right. Because of good management, we're actually trending upward. If the trend line goes the other way, well, we need to do some investigation to figure out, why are things not working? Why are we not getting as much fees, or why are our expenses rising? Can we do something about it? Because you're always trying to make a little more money year after year. And then you do the same thing at the end of the year, and that's what you're hoping for. So how does this translate into partners and associates? Well, every firm has a different formula or system, and this happens to be the one that we look at. It's a break-even report. It's what the partners in my firm judge each other on, and it's how we judge associates. Are you actually putting money into the coffers of the firm, or are you getting more money out? Are you making money, or are you losing money? At the end of the day, all the things I just talked about, they're all good things, but this is the report that we make our hiring decisions on. This is the report we make our firing decisions on. This is the report that we figure out as partners who gets paid what each and every year. So let me go over this with you. And I submit to you, when you start practicing law, figure out what your firm's formula is, how they account for it. Start doing some investigation and make a spreadsheet so that you can kind of track your performance, so that you can think a little bit like how the partners are looking at you, and you can see each and every month, am I making the progress? Am I doing the things they want from the reporting side? So here's Associate A, or here's Partner A. Partner A brings in $500,000 of revenue. His clients pay him $500,000 for a given year. Associate A, $200,000 are attributable to him. Shared overhead, these are things like rent, paper clips, copiers, things that everybody in a law firm, this particular hypothetical, a two-man law firm, are sharing. So there's $200,000 of rent and all these other things. Each of them takes a $100,000 lump. Maybe that's not a fair distribution, but I'll tell you what we do is it's a per attorney basis. Doesn't matter if you're a partner or associate. Other firms might do it differently, but you might want to investigate that as you're making your spreadsheet if you take my advice. Direct overhead is going to be things that are easier to directly attributable to a particular lawyer. My direct overhead is my particular secretary's expenses, my CLE expenses, my licensing expenses in New Mexico and Texas. They're just different things that I deem worthy enough that I pay directly for. So that's the direct overhead. And then we take the salary for a given year in the distribution. So you can see in my hypothetical example, Partner A is $60,000 over break even. So after he's paid his direct overhead, and he's paid everything else, there's $60,000 that's retained in the firm. That's what he has made for the firm. Associate A, on the other hand, has lost $30,000. He was $30,000 underneath what he took out of the firm or what he cost the firm. So what does that mean? That means Partner A had to subsidize Associate A. that partner A had to work an extra 100 hours during the given year to make up for that $30,000 that was lost by associate A. That partner A could have taken a 2-week vacation during that same period of time, but instead, because associate A was costing him $30,000, he had to forego that 2-week vacation with his family, that relaxation, to make sure that associate A could still work there and still have a job because he lost the money. So what is a partner going to do in that situation? Well, me, when I've been in that situation, I'm going to look and see what associate A is doing with their time. Are they there in the morning? Are they there in the evening? Are they putting in the hours? When they don't have something to work on, are they coming around asking me for work? Is this associate A, do they care that they're $30,000 in the hole or not? If they care, they're going to come find me and try to do what they can to get out of that hole. You know? And if they don't care, well, that tells me they don't really care a lot about my firm or me or my time or that 2 weeks I had to give with my family, and that certainly frustrates me. So here's the other example. Here's associate B. Partner A is the same, but associate B on this hand, he actually put $70,000 into the firm during this given year. Because he is able to collect $30,000 in revenue, which is what you as new associates will have the most control over, how much money is coming in, at least to a certain extent. But he was able to actually bill $300,000 instead of $200,000 during a given year. So he has made $70,000 for us. Okay? That means I can work 233 hours less during a given year. I can take a 4 to 5 week vacation and still have the same take-home as a partner because this associate has blessed my firm with this extra money. Because of their hard work, I can go spend a month with my family on vacation relaxing. I love this associate. I care about this associate. I want him to stay at my law firm. I want to know how he's doing in the morning. I want to make sure that his quality of life is good. If he wants to go play golf 4 days a week, but he's still able to make this money, I want him to. I'm going to buy his country club membership so he can figure out how to do that. That is how a partner like me sees it. And y'all get it. It's just the difference. It is selfish, but that's really how law firms work and how partners look at associates. So these are the things you have control over. Receipts. Getting new clients in the door. You know, getting involved in the community and actually meeting people. We don't account for it in a spreadsheet, but I promise you, most partners, when an associate actually brings in new business that the firm had never had before, I mean, there is an A+ for effort because that is really, truly earned income. That an associate has gone out into the world and found a good client who actually pays his bills, that does good work, and that's new revenue we wouldn't have already had. I mean, I commend the associate who's able to do that for their effort. That means a lot to a law firm. Existing clients. I mean, if you go work at a firm that has, been around for a little while or has any depth, you're going to get an opportunity to work with existing clients. A lot of your long-term clients will come from the existing clients of partners in the firm. As partners continue to advance in their career and get busier and busier with bigger cases and bigger deals and bigger transactions, some of the smaller, daily, more routine things for clients like evictions and just little things, they're not going to be able to get to them as quickly. So the appropriate role for the associate is to step in there and take care of the client and make sure they're getting that personal attention. The client's needs there are being met, and eventually that existing client is no longer going to be that partner's because they're not handling them day to day on the small, matters, the foreclosures for a bank. It'll end up becoming yours as the associate. So when you start out and you get the small little cases, the small bank foreclosure, and you're thinking, boy, I just don't know. I mean, I guess I'm just doing this because he's too busy. I promise you, if you take care of that foreclosure, you'll start having more and more and more work come in from that bank because you're the one who's getting the phone calls. You're the one who's giving the personal attention, and eventually that existing client will be yours and in your portfolio of business. Your partners. These are your best clients. in the entire place. Your work is going to come from them. When you're a new associate, take care of your partners. Make them look good. Do their work for them and make it exceptional. Take care of their clients to make them look good. If you take care of your partners and you think of them as your most important client because that's where your business is coming from, because remember, we're trying to maximize revenues, you will succeed in getting that partner to give you more and more and more business. So think of each and every one of your partners as potentially a good client that you need to develop and take care of and make sure they look good and you're doing their work timely and professionally. Referrals from other clients. If you take care of a client, they're going to tell their friends. You'd be surprised how much of your business will come in from taking care of that one small endeavor. You may end up having the biggest lawsuit of your life because you worked diligently and hard for one person you never thought you'd see again. And then opposing counsel. I think this is a feather in a lawyer's cap. When you go and you have a very spirited fight with the other side, where you win, where you beat them in the courtroom or you beat them in that deal, and you just absolutely do it the right way, the ethical way, and you've treated them professional all along, you'd be surprised when they get busy or they have an important client, they're going to send that work to you because you know why? They're impressed with you. You treated them professionally. They like you as a person, but they respect the job that you did for your client, and they'll send you business. So if you think of your opposing counsel, I mean, you can fight as much as you want in the courtroom, but you leave it on the court. You know, when you're outside the courtroom, you can be civil with them, and you'll start getting business in from them. And that really is a testament to your abilities when they start referring cases over to you. Overhead. As a young associate, you don't have as much control over your overhead because you don't get to sign the checks. You don't get to make the decisions. But when you're clerking and you're trying to decide what law firm I want to go work for, when you see those beautiful marble, slabs of whatever on the front deal, and they've got these beautiful fresh-cut flowers, and it's this really, really high-priced real estate, in the great part of Austin or Dallas. That all goes into overhead. So guess what? You're going to have to work that much harder to help everybody cover it. So you might think about that. There is a direct correlation between the amount of money this law firm spends on marketing and advertising and location and how many hours you're going to have to put in order to be above break even so that they can pay for all those wonderful things. There are two ways that people are kind of making partner. There's something called a non-equity partner, partner name only. Seeing this trend develop quite a bit where instead of having to buy into a law firm, actually having to capitalize it or put into it, that you at least get the name so you can hold yourself out as a partner. The other track, of course, is going to be a partner, and every firm is going to have some metrics about what you need to do in order to be qualified to have that extension. I suggest when you start your careers that you find a partner that you can trust and get the real story about what does this law firm expect of me? How many hours do I really need to bill? How profitable do I really need to be? How many new clients do I need to have? How big my portfolio needs to be for me to actually be a partner? If your goal is to be a partner and that's what you want to do, make sure you have that conversation early. Figure out how it is. If you're like me, quantify it, create that spreadsheet, and track it so that you know if you're on track or you're out of track, because it's a lot easier to do something about that early on in your career than wait until you've been there for 5 years and realizing that you can't close that bridge and that door is closed forever. I'll go quickly. This is the parts of the memo that I actually got when I started off as an associate. I'll go through a couple of the highlights, and then I'll turn it over for about 10 minutes of questions. This was the way we were supposed to track our time. 6 hours of billable and collectible time every single day, whether that took you 6 hours to do or 12 hours to do, and sometimes it was a little bit of both. That's what you actually was expected of me, is every single day that I'm in the office, 50 weeks a year, because I get a little vacation, that I needed to find 6 hours of time that I could actually bill for and collect for. My firm did want me involved in the community. I think sometimes the smaller towns like Lubbock, by comparison to Dallas, that's important for, because I'm not looking for an associate who is always going to be having to get work from me or the other partners. I want them to develop it. So we do push community service. We do want associates to actually be out in the community. That was an important thing. I'm glad that my firm pushed me into doing that. And then, of course, work quality and timeliness, things I've already talked about. So with that, I'd take any questions that y'all have. Yes? Okay, what type of things you can do educationally? I think you're doing them mostly by being here in law school. I think clerking is a tremendous opportunity. You know, in just having some lawyers that you can talk to who've actually practiced. You know, this is a tremendous law school. I think you get the nuts and bolts of everything that you need to pass the bar and actually understand what the law is, and good research skills. But, you know, finding that lawyer who's actually practiced, who can maybe tell you some of the things. And I would suggest to you, the older the lawyer, probably in some ways the better. There is something about a maturity of a 30 or 40-year practicing attorney who can just tell you some things that maybe cuts to the chase a lot quicker. So that would be it. Find that relationship and just visit with them. And I think most lawyers I've known would be you know, honored to have somebody approach them with that. Yes?
I'm a 1L. I'm considering doing the JD MBA program. And from what I understand, you also have you did the joint JD MBA as well. I don't know if you could speak about both, like the marketing, self-marketing aspect of having an MBA, but also the skill set you acquired from the MBA that helped, that maybe areas that you saw that helped having that MBA background.
I think I'll start kind of with the last question about the MBA. I think a lot of it probably depends on what your bachelor's degree was in. You know, my background was economics and finance. I think the MBA was a nice complement to it, but I'm not so sure that, for me, you know, the MBA component of it, you know, told me a lot new than I'd spent 4 years studying finance at Rhodes. By the same token, you know, I think that those that I talked to that did the joint degree that had a non-business minor background, non-business bachelor, I think it was a wonderful experience for them, because, you know, they had never looked at a spreadsheet before. They had not, you know, really dealt with some of the number crunching. They hadn't figured out some of the accounting, some of the marketing concepts. And so I think it was really a good thing for them. And so that, to me, is the value of the education, probably is commensurate with what your background is. And you've got to have a business, some business understanding to be in the private sector, in the private business, and law is just that. As far as marketing, I couldn't speak to that because I wanted to stay in Lubbock. I knew all the law firms. I had grown up in this town, and so I'm not so sure if it made much of a difference or not. It might make more of a difference in a Dallas or Houston market, but I'll have to tell you that's probably a deficit. I can't speak to what Dallas or Houston lawyers think about the joint degree. I don't think it hurts anything. Questions? Oh, yes.
How do you go about balancing both work and family life? Because I know it's one else many of us do here at families. It's already somewhat difficult to be able to balance because on one end we have a family at home who wants to see us, but on the other end it seems as though we have an inexhaustible amount of work to be able to do. How is the best way to manage that?
There is a period of time that no matter what, unless it's a rare exception, I'm going to commit to my family. It is from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock every evening. I'm going to go home. I'm going to see my wife. I'm going to see my 2 children. I'm going to spend time with them. I'm going to play with them, and I'm going to make the most of it. I'm going to turn the cell phone off. I'm not going to get on the laptop. And I'm able to do that because I live in a town like Lubbock. And even running a full campaign right now, I am going to be home at 6 o'clock, and people just are not going to call me for those 3 hours. They deserve that 3 hours. That is their 3 hours. That is my top priority. I make it that way. If I need to get back on the laptop because of technology at 9 o'clock at night and work until midnight, I'll turn it back on and finish my work. But, you know, they're going to get me during that period of time, and that's how I make it work. Yeah. Anybody else? Okay. Well, I appreciate your time today. Thank you for listening to me, and y'all have a good time. You as well. How are you?
Good. How about yourself?
Not bad at all.
Your signs went up rather quickly. I was very happy.
Yeah. We had a bunch of them.